A lot of students we find struggle with Christianity's view of sex because they themselves haven't had very good examples.
Right.
And so this one we titled Communicating That Sex is to Be Fun and Safe. And I remember talking to a counselor once, and we were talking about sex because that's kind of what we do in our counseling. And so it was a colleague. And I remember she was blown away by the idea that I said fun. You know, sex is fun. And she kind of was like, whoa, like that's an interesting term.
Right.
Like that you see it that way. But is there some biblical precedent for it to be fun?
Absolutely. And even just like backing up on what we said in our last video, that like inviting God into the bedroom, for a lot of Christians, even me saying that would be like, no, then it can't be fun. But that says a lot about your views of God. I love in 1 Timothy chapter 1, Paul calls God the blessed God.
The happy guy.
He's the happy God, you know? He's a blast to be around. He is the fountain of all joy and pleasure. And so when we're saying bring God into the bedroom, the precedent is if God is the founder, he's the creator of all pleasure and intimacy. Like he literally created all of it. And that means that from the source, if you drank from the source, you would be getting the purest amount of pleasure and joy. So sometimes in our brains as Christians, we can disassociate God, not just from sex, but from pleasure and happiness. We'd be like, man, you come to God and you're somber, you know, and everything's serious, you know, and that's what God's like. He's just a serious guy and he's not fun at all. But it says about Jesus in Psalm 45 that he was anointed with the oil of gladness more than anyone, meaning that Jesus was the funnest dude ever to hang around. And you definitely see that in his earthly ministry, that the people that were the most somber and serious didn't really like Jesus very much. You know, like the Pharisees, they didn't like hanging out with him. But the people who were like the prostitutes, the drunkards, the people like that, they seemed to love Jesus. Like they would go to parties with him, they'd hang out with him. Now, it doesn't mean that Jesus was like giving them the thumbs up to their debauchery, but it definitely means that Jesus was someone that you can have a lot of fun with. He was really, really fun. So when we say that God is in the bedroom, what that should equate to in our mind is that God comes into the bedroom not to make sex less fun and more somber, but he comes into the bedroom to make it more fun, like more exciting, more amazing. And a passage of the Bible that really helped me understand this was in 1 Samuel. I believe it's in chapter 2. But Hannah and her husband Elkanah end up having intimacy that actually, the intimacy that conceived Samuel. And right when they're done having intimacy, they immediately go into the temple and worship God. And I was like, that's radical to think that like their enjoyment and their pleasure, their clearly mutual pleasure that they had in enjoying one another's bodies and sex, led them to want to worship God who created sex.
Yeah, to thank God.
To thank him, to be like, man, God is so cool.
This is amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah. And obviously when you go through the Proverbs, like Proverbs 5 specifically, or the Song of Songs, what you see amazing amount of pleasure, like really just raw, almost seemingly secular pleasure occurring in these passages where they're just talking about enjoying the body of the person that they're with in really interesting ways, really graphic ways sometimes.
Yeah.